Have you ever seen something so strange it stopped you in your tracks? That's exactly what happened to Mara Hensley one morning in Montana. A house cat was crying at the water's edge, not playing, not hunting, crying for help. When Mara got closer, she saw why. A tiny duckling was stuck in thick mud, sinking lower with every breath. The cat could have walked away, could have done what cats do. Instead, it stayed. It called out. It waited. And what happened in the next few minutes will stick with you long after this story ends. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. We love seeing how far our stories reach. To understand why this moment mattered so much, we need to go back to the beginning of that morning, before the cry, before the mud, before everything went impossibly, beautifully wrong. The sun had barely cleared the ridge when Mara arrived at Willow Creek Preserve. 6:45 in the morning, same time as always. She parked her truck near the visitor center, grabbed her field notebook, and breathed in the cool Montana air. The marsh stretched out before her like glass, undisturbed except for the occasional ripple from a fish breaking the surface. Reeds swayed gently in the breeze. Somewhere in the distance, a loon called out its morning greeting. This was the part of her job Mara loved most, the quiet before the world woke up. Before tourists arrived asking questions, before phones started ringing, before the day's chaos took over. Just her, the water, and whatever the preserve wanted to show her. She walked the familiar path along the eastern trail, noting the usual signs. Fresh beaver tracks near the old dam. A great blue heron standing motionless in the shallows. Everything exactly as it should be. Predictable, safe, ordinary. Then came the sound. At first, Mara thought it was a bird, something injured maybe, or caught in the reeds. But as she stopped and tilted her head, listening harder, she realized it wasn't a bird at all. It was a cat, a house cat, out here, in the middle of a protected wetland where domestic animals weren't even allowed. The crying continued, sharp, urgent, wrong. Mara changed direction, following the sound through a cluster of willows. Her boots squelched softly in the damp earth as she pushed aside branches and stepped into a small clearing near the water's edge. And there it was, an orange tabby, medium-sized, with white paws and a white chest. The cat stood rigid at the marsh's border, staring down at something Mara couldn't yet see. "Hey there," Mara said softly, crouching low. "What are you doing all the way out here?" The cat didn't even glance at her. It just kept crying. Loud, piercing wails that sent chills down Mara's spine. This wasn't the sound of a lost pet. This was panic, raw and unfiltered. Mara moved closer, carefully, trying not to startle the animal. That's when she saw what had the cat so worked up. A baby duckling. Tiny. Yellow and brown fluff barely visible against the dark mud. It was stuck about 6 feet from the shore, trapped in a thick patch of sludge that looked deceptively shallow, but clearly wasn't. The duckling's small head bobbed as it struggled, wings beating weakly against the weight pulling it down. Mara's heart dropped. But what stopped her from rushing forward wasn't the duckling, it was the cat. Because the tabby wasn't crouched in hunting mode. It wasn't licking its lips or preparing to pounce. It was pacing, back and forth, crying out like it was trying to tell her something, like it needed her to understand. The cat stopped, looked directly at Mara, and let out another desperate wail. Then it turned back to the duckling, then back to Mara again. Are you trying to get me to help? Mara whispered, barely believing her own words. The duckling chirped weakly. Its movements were slowing. The mud had crept up to its chest now, thick and dark and unforgiving. Mara scanned the marsh quickly, searching for any sign of a mother duck. Mallards were fiercely protective. If a baby was in trouble, the mother would be close by, calling, circling, doing anything to protect her young. But the marsh was silent, except for the cat's cries. No mother, no flock, nothing. Just one house cat standing guard over prey it should have abandoned or attacked minute ago. Mara's mind raced. This didn't make sense. Cats didn't rescue birds. They hunted them. That was nature. That was instinct. Yet here stood this orange tabby, trembling with urgency, refusing to leave, refusing to turn away. The duckling let out another faint chirp, and then it sank. Just a little. Maybe half an inch. But enough. The cat's cries turned frantic. Mara's eyes locked onto the duckling. Every tiny movement told a story of exhaustion. The baby's wings fluttered once, twice, then went still. Its head dipped forward, beak barely above the surface of the mud. The mud itself looked almost innocent from where Mara stood. Just dark, wet earth. But she knew better. It was thick as cement, the kind that grabbed hold and didn't let go. Every struggle the duckling made only worked the mud deeper around its body, creating suction that pulled downward with quiet, patient force. The duckling chirped again, softer this time, almost a whisper. The cat responded immediately. It stepped right up to the very edge of the mud, its whole body tensed. The tabby opened its mouth and cried out, louder than before. Mara watched, transfixed. The cat could have reached the duckling if it wanted to. One leap. Cats were incredible hunters. This should have been over already. But the cat didn't move forward. It moved side to side, pacing the shoreline like a sentry, like something was holding it back. Not fear, not hesitation. Something else entirely. The duckling's head bobbed lower, and then something remarkable happened. The tiny bird turned its head toward the cat, slowly, weakly, as if it recognized the sound, as if it understood that the voice crying out wasn't a threat. The duckling's beak opened, and it let out one small peep in response. The cat froze mid-pace. Then it cried back, urgent, insistent. They were communicating. Mara felt her breath catch in her chest. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. These two creatures, predator and prey, separated by every rule nature had ever written, were somehow connected in this moment. The cat wasn't stalking, it was pleading. But Mara stood frozen. Her mind screamed at her to move, to do something. But her body wouldn't cooperate. What if she made it worse? What if she stepped wrong and sank too? What if the duckling panicked and disappeared beneath the surface? Mara's hands trembled. She took one step forward. The mud squelched under her boot. She stopped. The duckling was at least 6 feet out. The marsh bottom was unpredictable. One step could be solid. The next could drop her waist deep. The cat turned and looked at her. Really looked. Its golden eyes met hers with an intensity that sent a jolt through her entire body. This wasn't the blank stare of an animal. This was recognition, understanding. It was asking. No, it was begging. The duckling's body tilted slightly to one side. Its eyes were closing. Mara's heart hammered in her chest. She glanced around desperately for a branch, a board, anything. But there was nothing. Just grass, reeds, and open water. "Okay," Mara whispered. "Okay, I'm going to try." She took another step forward. The ground held. Another step. Still solid. But she could feel the change underfoot. The earth was getting softer, wetter, less stable. The cat moved with her, staying parallel along the shore, matching her pace. Its cries shifted, quieter now, almost like encouragement. Mara reached the point where the mud began in earnest, 3 feet from the duckling. She crouched low, testing the surface with her hand. The mud was cold, sticky. Her fingers sank immediately. The duckling sank another inch. The cat let out one sharp, piercing cry. Mara's head snapped up. The tabby was crouched now, body low, every muscle tight. Its mouth opened, and it made a sound Mara had never heard a cat make before. Not a meow, not a hiss. Something in between, desperate, directed, intentional. The cat's eyes never left hers. Mara didn't have time to second-guess anymore. She planted her right foot forward into the mud. It held for a moment, then gave way. Her boot sank 3 inches. 4. She shifted her weight quickly, spreading it across both feet, and the sinking stopped. Her left foot was still on solid ground. Barely. The mud felt alive under her, not pulling exactly, just waiting, patient, ready to take whatever weight she offered. She reached forward with one arm, stretching as far as she could. Her fingertips came within 2 feet of the duckling, close, but not close enough. The baby's head was drooping now, chin nearly resting on the mud's surface. Its wings hadn't moved in 30 seconds. Mara's pulse thundered in her ears. She had to get closer. But every instinct screamed at her to stay put. One wrong move and she'd be stuck too. The cat made a low, guttural sound. Mara glanced over. The tabby had repositioned itself directly across from the duckling. It crouched low, eyes locked on the baby bird, and extended one white paw forward, slowly, deliberately. The paw touched the mud. Mara's breath caught. The cat was testing it, feeling for stability, just like she was. "Don't," Mara whispered. "You'll get stuck too." But the cat didn't pull back. It pressed down gently, applying weight. The mud accepted the paw without resistance. The cat shifted forward slightly, its body staying low, balanced, as if it understood exactly how much weight the surface could handle. Then the impossible happened. The cat began to hum, not purring, not meowing. A low, steady vibration that carried across the morning air. And the duckling responded, its head lifted just slightly. The tiny bird's eyes blinked open, focusing on the orange blur at the mud's edge. The cat kept humming, kept its paw extended, kept its position locked. Mara realized what was happening. The cat was giving the duckling something to hold on to, not physically, but emotionally. A presence, a sound. Something that said, "You're not alone." Hope surged through Mara's chest. If the duckling stayed conscious, she had a chance. She adjusted her stance, testing the mud again. It sank another inch. She froze. Fear flooded in right behind the hope, sharp and cold. This was more dangerous than she'd thought. The mud was layered. Pockets of solid earth mixed with pockets of nothing. She could feel the instability through her leg. But the duckling was fading. Its eyes were closing. Urgency overrode everything. Mara dropped to her knees, spreading her weight across as much surface as possible. The mud rose to her shins, cold, heavy. She leaned forward, reaching with both arms, fingers stretched as far as they would go. 1 foot, 6 inches. So close. The cat leaned forward too. Its paw sank deeper, but the animal didn't pull back. It pressed on, extending itself further than was safe. The tabby's body trembled with effort, but it held its ground. Mara's fingers brushed the duckling's wing, Contact. But the baby didn't react. Its body was limp, too still. No, 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 Mara breathed. Stay with me, please. She spread her fingers wider, trying to grip the tiny bird without hurting it. The mud made everything slippery. Her first attempt failed. The duckling tilted sideways, and for one heart-stopping second, Mara thought it would go under. The cat cried out, sharp, commanding. The duckling's eyes fluttered open. Just barely. Just enough. Mara tried again. This time her fingers found purchase under the bird's small body. She could feel its heartbeat, rapid, weak, but there. She began to lift, applying gentle upward pressure. The mud resisted. Come on, Mara whispered. Come on. She pulled harder. The duckling rose half an inch. The suction broke with a soft squelch. The baby was free. Mara's hand closed carefully around its tiny frame. Relief crashed through her, but it lasted exactly 2 seconds. The moment Mara shifted her weight backward, her right knee sank. Fast, deep. The mud grabbed her leg and held tight. She gasped, jerking instinctively, which made it worse. Her left leg started sinking too. She was stuck. The duckling was safe in her hand, but Mara couldn't move. The cat pulled its paw free and began pacing faster, agitated, searching. Then it stopped. Its ears swiveled backward, its head turned toward the marsh. And Mara heard it too. A sound in the distance. Faint, a splash. Then another. Something was coming. Before we continue, you and most people watching right now might never see another video from this channel. All because you forgot to subscribe. So please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It is literally the only way you tell me that the hours researching, writing, and editing these stories was worth it. Now, let's get back to the story. Mara forced herself to stay calm. Panicking would only drive her deeper. She took a slow breath, held the duckling close with one hand, and braced against the mud surface with her free arm. Slowly, she shifted her weight left, distributing pressure away from her trapped right leg. The mud resisted. Then, inch by inch, it released. She pulled her right knee upward, feeling the suction break with a wet pop. Her leg came free. She didn't celebrate, just kept moving, body low and spread out, dragging herself backward until solid ground met her boots. The moment she was clear, Mara sat back hard on the grass and looked down at her hand. The duckling lay still in her palm, eyes half closed, mud caked its feathers. But its chest was moving, up and down, breathing. You're okay, Mara whispered, her voice shaking. You're okay now. She cradled the tiny bird carefully, wiping mud from its beak with her sleeve. The duckling's head turned slightly toward her warmth. Its small body trembled, but it was alive. Safe. Out of the mud. For 5 seconds, relief flooded every part of Mara's body. Her shoulders dropped, her breathing steadied. She'd done it. Against all odds, she'd pulled this baby from certain death. But then she looked up. The cat was still there, still pacing, still agitated. It hadn't relaxed, hadn't walked away. If anything, the tabby seemed more anxious now. It moved back and forth along the shoreline, crying out in sharp bursts. Its tail lashed. Its ears swiveled constantly, tracking sounds Mara couldn't hear. What's wrong? Mara asked softly. We got the baby. It's safe. But the cat didn't glance at her. It kept its attention fixed on the marsh, searching, waiting. Mara looked down at the duckling again. The baby was breathing, yes. Alive, yes, but it was also soaked, exhausted, and vulnerable. Ducklings this young needed warmth, protection. And most importantly, they needed their mother. Without her, This baby's survival chances dropped dramatically. Even if Mara got it back to the wildlife center, nothing replaced what a mother duck could provide. So where was she? Mallard mothers didn't abandon their young. They were fiercely devoted. If a baby was in trouble, the mother would be close by, calling, circling, doing everything in her power to help. But Mara had been here for nearly 10 minutes, and she hadn't seen or heard any sign of an adult duck. The silence felt wrong. The cat let out another cry, longer, more urgent. It moved closer to the water's edge, staring across the marsh with an intensity that made Mara's skin prickle. She followed the cat's gaze. The marsh stretched out before them, calm on the surface. Reeds swayed gently. The water reflected pale blue sky. Everything looked peaceful, normal. But something was off. A heaviness in the air, a tension that didn't belong. The duckling let out a weak chirp. Mara looked down and saw the baby's head turning, searching. Its tiny beak opened and closed. It was calling, looking for its mother. No response came. Mara's chest tightened. The relief she'd felt moments ago evaporated, replaced by something darker, something that felt like dread. The cat stopped pacing. It crouched low, body tense, staring at a spot across the creek where the marsh widened, its ears pinned back flat. A low growl rumbled in its throat. Mara squinted, trying to see what had the cat so focused. At first, nothing. Just reeds and water. But then she saw movement, subtle, a flash of brown and white among the vegetation. Something was there, struggling. She stood slowly, cradling the duckling against her chest. Her eyes strained to make sense of what she was seeing. The movement was erratic, desperate. Not the smooth glide of a duck swimming. This was panic. The cat took 2 steps forward, stopped at the water's edge, and let out a sound that made Mara's blood run cold. It wasn't a cry for help this time. It was a warning. And then Mara saw it clearly. Across the creek, maybe 50 feet away, tangled in reeds and something that glinted in the sunlight, was an adult mallard. A female, brown feathers, white patches. She was thrashing, wings beating frantically, but she couldn't move, couldn't fly, couldn't escape. She was trapped. The duckling in Mara's hand chirped again, louder this time, and from across the water the mother duck answered. A desperate, heartbroken quack that echoed across the marsh. Mara's heart sank. The cat hadn't been trying to rescue just the baby. It had been trying to tell her the whole story. But now, looking at the distance, at the water between them, at the way the mother duck struggled against whatever held her, Mara realized something worse. Saving the duckling had been hard. Saving the mother? That might be impossible. Mara's eyes locked onto the struggling mother duck. From this distance, she could see the problem clearly now. Fishing line. Thin, transparent, wrapped multiple times around the duck's left wing and neck. The line tangled in the reeds, anchoring the bird in place. Every time the mother tried to move, the line pulled tighter. Mara's stomach turned. This wasn't nature. This was human carelessness. Someone had been fishing, lost their line or left it behind, and now an innocent animal was paying the price. The distance between them felt enormous. 50 feet of open water. The creek was deeper here, faster moving. Even if Mara could cross while carrying the duckling, untangling fishing line from a panicked bird was delicate, dangerous work. The mother quacked again, desperate. The baby in Mara's hand responded immediately, chirping and squirming toward the sound. The duckling knew its mother's voice. The cat interrupted with a sharp cry. Mara looked down. The tabby had positioned itself directly between her and the water's edge. Not blocking, but protecting. The cat's message was clear. The baby stays here, safe, on land. Mara pulled out her phone with shaking fingers. She scrolled to Caleb Torres, a wildlife rescue specialist. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. "Come on," Mara muttered. "Mara?" Caleb's voice came through. "What's going on?" "Caleb, I need help." Willow Creek, Eastern Trail, adult female mallard trapped in fishing line across the creek. Wing and neck, she's struggling hard. A pause. "How bad?" "Bad. I don't know how much time she has." 20 minutes. Keep eyes on her." "I'm not leaving." "Good. Bringing Rena. We'll handle it." The call ended. 20 minutes. Watching the mother duck tire across the water. 20 minutes felt like forever. Mara sat in the grass, keeping the duckling warm. The baby had stopped struggling, exhausted. She stroked its head gently. The cat remained on guard, watching everything. Occasionally it glanced at Mara, checking she was still there. Still keeping the baby safe. Across the creek, the mother's movements slowed. She was tiring. The line pulled tighter with every thrash. Minutes crawled. 5, 10. The sun climbed higher. Birds sang, oblivious to the crisis. The mother quacked again, weaker. The duckling chirped back, desperate. Then Mara heard it. An engine. A truck on the access road. Relief flooded through her. But the cat's behavior changed. Its ears flattened. Body tensed. A low growl rumbled in its throat as it turned towards the approaching vehicle. "It's okay," Mara said. "They're here to help." The cat didn't relax. It took several steps toward the trail, stopped, looked back. Its eyes were wide, alert. The truck engine cut off. Doors slammed. Voices called out. The cat's growl deepened. Then Mara heard something else. A second vehicle. Heavier. Moving slower. Coming from the opposite direction. The cat bolted. Not away. Toward the sound. "Wait!" Mara called. But the tabby disappeared into the brush, moving with purpose toward something Mara couldn't see. Footsteps approached behind her. "Mara!" She turned. Caleb emerged from the trail, tall and lean, carrying a rescue kit. Behind him came Rena Chen, shorter but carrying twice the equipment. "Where's the duck?" Caleb asked. Mara pointed across the creek. "There, fishing line, wing and neck." Rena pulled out binoculars, studied the situation. "That's tight. We'll need the boat." "Boat's in the truck," Caleb said, already moving. 5 minutes. But Mara wasn't listening anymore. Her attention was fixed on the brush where the cat had vanished. The sound of the second vehicle was closer now, right on the other side of the tree line. And then she heard it, a sound that made her blood run cold. Not an engine, a voice, human, male, angry, and the unmistakable sound of the orange tabby hissing. Before we continue, I would like to let you know that you don't owe me a subscription. But if this video made you feel anything at all, disappearing without supporting it says a lot. So please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It is literally the only way you tell me that the hours researching, writing, and editing these stories was worth it. Now, let's get back to the story. "Stay with the duckling," Mara said quickly to Caleb. She handed him the tiny bird, still wrapped in the warmth of her hands. "I'll be right back." She moved toward the sound, pushing through low branches. 20 feet into the brush, she found the source. A man stood near an old pickup truck, maybe 60 years old, weathered face, work boots caked in mud. He wasn't angry, he was kneeling, and the orange tabby sat 3 feet in front of him, completely still, watching him with calm, steady eyes. "Lumen," the man said softly. "You had me worried sick." The cat, Lumen, walked forward and pressed against the man's leg. "Not afraid? Familiar?" Mara exhaled. "He's yours?" The man looked up, relief washing over his features. "Yeah, slipped out this morning before I could stop him. Been searching for an hour." He scratched behind Lumen's ears. "He does this sometimes. Takes off when he hears something that needs help." Mara stared. "He's done this before?" "3 times now. Found him with an injured rabbit last spring. A sparrow with a broken wing in July. He doesn't hurt them, just stays with them, guards them until I show up or someone else does." The man shook his head. "I know it sounds strange." "No," Mara said quietly. "It doesn't." The man stood, scooping Lumen into his arms. "I'll get him home. Sorry if he caused trouble." "He didn't," Mara said firmly. "He saved a life today." She turned and walked back towards the creek. When she emerged from the brush, Caleb and Rena already had the inflatable boat in the water. Rena was rowing across, moving steadily toward the trapped mother duck. Caleb stood on the shore, holding the duckling carefully in both hands. Lumen appeared beside Mara, having slipped from his owner's grasp one more time. The cat sat down, watching the scene unfold across the water. Rena reached the mother duck. Her movements were slow, deliberate. She spoke in low, soothing tones that carried faintly across the creek. The duck had stopped thrashing, exhausted. Rena pulled small scissors from her kit and began cutting the fishing line. 1 strand, 2, 3. Mara held her breath. If the line had been too tight for too long, the duck might not recover. She might be too weak to fly. The last strand fell away. Rena backed off immediately, giving the duck space. For a long moment, nothing happened. The mother just floated there, motionless. Then her wings extended, slowly at first, testing. She flapped once, twice, lifted slightly out of the water. She could fly. Rena let out a breath and began rowing back. The mother duck shook her feathers, oriented herself, and then her head snapped toward the shore, toward the sound she'd been hearing this whole time. Her baby, chirping from Caleb's hands. She called out, a strong, clear quack. The duckling went wild, squirming and peeping frantically. "Let it go," Mara said. Caleb crouched and opened his hands near the water's edge. The duckling tumbled out, found its footing, and scrambled toward the creek. It hit the water with a tiny splash and began paddling. Frantic, determined. The mother duck swam toward her baby at full speed. They met in the middle. The sound came first, a chorus of quacks and chirps, overlapping, desperate, relieved. Then the visual. The mother circling her baby, checking it over with her beak, touching every part of the tiny body to make sure it was real. Whole. Safe. The duckling tucked itself under its mother's wing. The mother wrapped around it protectively, and for the first time all morning, both birds went quiet, just floating, together. Mara felt tears sting her eyes. She didn't bother wiping them away. Beside her, Lumen stood. The cat watched the reunion for a long moment, then turned and walked slowly back towards the brush. Not running, not hurrying. Just finished. His work was done. The mother duck guided her baby toward the far reeds, away from the shore, into the safety of deeper marsh. Within seconds, they disappeared into the vegetation. Together, whole. Rena climbed out of the boat, breathing hard. That was close. Too close, Caleb agreed. Mara looked back toward the brush where Lumen had vanished. The orange tabby was gone. return to his owner, back to whatever quiet life he lived when he wasn't out here, saving creatures that couldn't save themselves. But something had changed, something in Mara, in the way she understood the world. Because if a house cat could choose compassion over instinct, what did that say about the rest of us? The sun was higher now, burning off the last traces of morning mist. Mara stood at the edge of Willow Creek, watching the spot where the mother and baby had disappeared into the reeds. The marsh had returned to its usual rhythm. Birds called, water rippled. Life continued as if nothing remarkable had happened. But something had happened. Something that would stay with Mara for the rest of her life. Caleb packed up the rescue equipment, coiling rope with practiced efficiency. Rena secured the boat back onto the truck. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind that came from years of doing this together. Finally, Caleb turned to Mara. "You did good today," he said. Mara shook her head. "It wasn't me. It was the cat." "Lumen," Rena said, leaning against the truck. "That's what the owner called him, right?" "Yeah. Lumen." Mara tested the name on her tongue. It fit. Light. That's what the name meant. And in a way, that's exactly what the cat had been. A light in a dark moment. A guide when everything felt impossible. "The owner said Lumen's done this before," Mara continued. "Found animals in trouble and stayed with them. Protected them." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "That's unusual." "That's impossible," Rena corrected. "Cats are hunters. It's what they do." "I know," Mara said quietly. "But I saw it. We all did." The three of them stood there, processing, trying to make sense of something that defied logic. A predator choosing mercy, a house cat understanding need, an animal deciding that compassion mattered more than instinct. By afternoon, word had spread through the preserve. Staff gathered in the break room, asking questions, wanting details. By evening, Mara's phone was buzzing with messages from friends who'd heard the story secondhand. By the next morning, local news had picked it up. A small article. Nothing major. Just a few paragraphs about an unusual rescue at Willow Creek. But the story didn't stop there. It traveled. Social media picked it up. People shared it, commented on it, debated whether it was real or exaggerated. Within a week, the story of Lumen and the duckling had reached thousands of people across the country. Not because it was dramatic, not because it was shocking, but because it asked a question nobody could ignore. If a cat could pause its instincts for the sake of another creature's life, what did that mean for us? Mara thought about that question often in the days that followed. She'd been working at Willow Creek for 6 years. She'd seen countless acts of survival. Nature was beautiful, yes, but it was also brutal, efficient, unforgiving. Animals did what they needed to do to live. Except sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they chose something else, something harder, something that required them to go against every natural urge they possessed. Lumen hadn't needed to stay with that duckling. He could have walked away, could have done what cats do, but he didn't. He made a choice. And that choice saved 2 lives. Mara returned to the Eastern Trail 3 days later. Early morning, just like before. The marsh was quiet, peaceful. She walked to the spot where she'd found Lumen and the duckling. The mud had dried. The reeds swayed gently in the breeze. There was no evidence left of what had happened here. But Mara remembered every second. She stood there, thinking about courage. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that announced itself with fanfare and celebration. But the quiet kind. The kind that showed up when nobody was watching. The kind that made hard choices because they were right, not because they were easy. Lumen never got a medal, never got recognition. He just went home with his owner and lived his life. But the impact of what he did? That rippled outward in ways nobody could measure. Because stories like this remind us of something we forget too easily. We are all capable of more than our instincts, more than our habits, more than what comes naturally. Compassion is a choice, and every single day we get to decide whether we make it. Mara took a breath, turned, and walked back toward the visitor center. Behind her, the marsh came alive with sound, ducks calling, wings flapping, life continuing in its messy, beautiful, unpredictable way. And somewhere out there, a house cat named Lumen was probably curled up in a sunbeam, waiting for the next moment he was needed. If this story changed the way you see the world, even just a little, then we need you to do something. Subscribe right now. Not tomorrow. Not later. Right now. Because every time you skip that button, you're telling us stories like lumens don't matter. And they do. They matter more than you know. Hit like if compassion is a choice you're willing to make. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And comment below. When was the last time you chose kindness over convenience? We find these stories. We tell them. We make sure they reach people who need hope. But we can't do it without you. So don't just watch. Be part of this. Subscribe. Because the next story we tell might be the one that changes everything.